Good afternoon, dear learners. I'm Dr. Sahabuddin Ahamed, Assistant Professor, Guest Faculty in the Department of English at Pandit Sundarlal Sharma Open University, Chhattisgarh, India. Welcome you all to this virtual lecture. Today, I'll be speaking about the plot of the novel The Namesake, written by Jhumpa Lahiri. Firstly, the novel is about a Bengali immigrant family who moves from Calcutta to Cambridge, Massachusetts, America. The novel talks about identity, family, culture, love, and especially the importance of names. Most importantly, the story shows how immigrants and their children struggle between two different cultures. The novel, The Namesake, was first published in 2004, and the novel is a contemporary fiction. The novel is set in the places that is Calcutta, Boston, and New York. Major themes of the novel is identity, culture, immigration, love, name, and the major characters of the novel are Ashima Ganguly, Ashok Ganguly, Google Ganguly, Sonali Ganguly, Mausumi Majumdar, and Maxine Ratliff. I am sharing the PPT slides. To begin with, the novel The Namesake tells the story of the Ganguly family living in the Massachusetts, USA. The Ganguly family moved from Calcutta to Massachusetts, America for education, better opportunities, and better lifestyle. The story of the novel covers about 30 years of their life in Boston, USA. However, their life in a new country, new hostland, is not easy. As a result, there is always a cultural conflict in the Ganguly family. The main focus of the novel is Google, the son of Ashok and Asima Ganguly, and it is Google Ganguly's struggle to understand who he really is. That is his identity crisis. The parents of Google Ganguly try to keep that Indian culture alive, while the children of Ashok and Asima grow up in American society. The children follow American style, American way of life, American culture, tradition. The novel shows the immigrant experience and cultural conflict that the Ganguly family facing, undergoing. Next slide, focusing on from Calcutta to Boston. Now let us look at how the story begins. In chapter 1st and 2nd of the namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri, we learn about the early life of the Ganguly family. Ashok Ganguly survives a train accident in India while he was reading the short stories of Nikolai Gogol, the famous Russian writer. After his near-death experience, Ashok decides to move to Boston, Massachusetts to study at a university and to start a new life. A few years later, Ashok's parents arrange his marriage to Asima Ganguly. Asima leaves Calcutta and moves to Boston to live with Ashok Ganguly. But life is very different for Ashok. Sorry, life is very different for Ashima Ganguly, and as a result, she feels alienated, isolated, lonely life in this new country. At the beginning of the novel, Ashima is about to have their first baby. That's why she and Ashok go to a hospital in Boston. Asima's grandmother had sent a letter from India with the baby's name, but the letter is lost. The hospital says the baby must have a name before he can live. So Ashima and Ashok give their son the name Gogol. Ashok chooses this name after the Russian writer Nikolai Gogol, whose book he was reading when he survived the train accident. After that, they plan to change the name later, and him they give the baby a formal name. However, Ashima's father suddenly dies and they must quickly travel to Calcutta. Because of this, they forget to name the baby, and that's why Gogol becomes his official name on the passport. And this name Gogol becomes very important in the story of the novel. Now, coming to the next slide, Gogol's childhood. In chapter 3 and 4 of the namesake, we see how Gogol Ganguly is growing up in a new cultural ambience that is in America. He is a Bengali American child, but his name Gogol is neither Bengali nor American. That's why there is a identity crisis with Gogol. When he starts kindergarten, his parents try to give him his formal Bengali name Nikhil. However, Gogol refuses to answer to that name, so everyone later continues to call him Gogol. Later, his younger sister is born and her formal name is Sonali, but everyone calls her Sonia. Ashok and Asima try to raise their children with their Bengali culture, Bengali tradition. Asima and Ashok celebrate Bengali holidays and they invite Bengali friends to their house for parties. They celebrate Bengali festivals. But Gogol and Sonia often want to live like their American friends. They want to follow American culture, American way of life. And this sometimes creates a tension in the family. There creates a cultural conflict. At Gogol's 14th birthday party, where other Bengali immigrants gathered, friends of Ashima and Ashok gather and they meet. So at his birthday party, Gogol meets a shy girl named Mosumi. Many years later, Mosumi becomes Gogol's wife. When Gogol in his 10th grade, the Ganguly family travels to Calcutta for 8 months. Gogol and Sonia feel uncomfortable in Calcutta because they miss their home, America. In his senior year of high school, Gogol goes to a college party and Gogol pretends to be a college student. He kisses a college girl and just before the kiss, he tells his beloved his name is Nikhil. This shows that Gogol is starting to prefer his formal name. Gogol wants to create his new identity for himself. Now next slide, becoming Nikhil. In chapters 5 and 6 of the namesake, Gogol Ganguly officially changes his name to Nikhil. And he does this before starting his college at Yale University. He starts his college life and he does not tell anyone at college that his old name was Gogol because he tries to separate his past from his new present life. At Yale University, he dates a student Ruth, but their relationship ends before graduation. During his college, Google often visits his family in Boston. On one visit, his father Ashok Ganguly finally tells Google the story of the terrible train accident and how he survived the train accident, and he explains why he named him Google after the famous Russian writer Nikolai Gogol. After finishing college, Google earns a graduate degree at Columbia University, and then he becomes an architect in New York City. Now, turning to the next slide, life with Maxine. In New York City, Google starts dating a woman named Maxine Ratliff. He meets her parents on their first date. And later, Google even moves in with her family. However, Google feels uncomfortable about bringing Maxine to meet his own parents. When Ashok accepts a new job in Ohio for 9 months, Ashima asks Google Ganguly to visit before his father leaves. But Google and Maxine stop to have lunch with his parents. They are on their way to New Hampshire for a vacation with Maxine's family. That means how Google Ganguly avoids his mother's call to meet his father before his father leaves for a new job in Ohio. Next slide, Ashok's death, the turning point in the narrative. In chapters 7 to 9 of the novel, Google's life changes suddenly when his father dies. Ashok calls Ashima from Ohio to say that he is in the hospital because of a stomach. A few hours later, Ashok Ganguly dies of a heart attack. After that, after hearing the news, Google travels to Ohio to collect his father's body, and he cleans out his father's apartment. Then he returns to his house at Boston to mourn with his family. But Maxine feels sorry for Google, but she does not understand why Google spends so much time mourning with his family and why Google is following Bengali traditions. Google also feels that Maxine cannot truly understand his loss, his cultural root, cultural background, and because of this misunderstanding, both Google and Maxine Ratliff break up. In this slide, marriage to Moshumi, about a year later, Google has a short relationship with a married woman named Bridget. After that, he begins dating Moshumi Mazumdar. Moshumi Mazumdar is a Bengali American woman. She is an immigrant, and Google met Moshumi few years ago at his 14th birthday party. And Moshumi had recently ended her engagement to a man named Graham. Graham is an American. Google and Moshumi feel comfortable together because they share the same cultural background. They are from Calcutta. Their parents are very happy about their relationship, and as a result, soon they get married. However, their marriage begins to have problems. First problem, Mosumi decides not to change her last name Mozumdar to Ganguly. Secondly, when Mosumi and Google travel to Paris, Mosumi talks about living in Paris, but Google feels uncomfortable. Google feels it is that he is out of place, out of home. Thirdly, at a dinner party, Moshomi tells her friends about Google's old name and about Google's recent name change. Google feels hurt and Google believes that Moshomi has broken his heart, his trust. In the final part of the novel, Moshomi becomes unhappy. She feels unhappy in her marriage to Google. She turned down a fellowship in Paris, and after that, Moshomi starts to feel trapped. She feels bored in her life with Google Ganguly. By chance, she finds the contact information of her old school friend Dimitri. She had once been in love with Dimitri and they begin seeing each other and start an affair. Moshe feels very guilty, but she continues the relationship with Dimitri. Google does not suspect anything. Even when Google sees her packing a bathing suit for what she says a weekend conference, he does not realize she is actually going out with Dimitri. One day, Mosumi accidentally says Dimitri's name in front of Google and suddenly looks nervous and guilty. At that moment, Google understands the truth and the cause of their misunderstanding. After this, their marriage ends and they get divorced. This is another emotional loss and disappointment for Google Ganguly. In a new country, new homeland, in this slide, identity and acceptance. Finally, the novel ends with hope and self understanding, that is, acceptance and reconciliation. A year after the divorce, Asima hosts the last Christmas party in the Ganguly house on Pemberton Road, Boston, United States of America. Asima has decided to sell the house. She decides to live half in Calcutta and half, that means 6 months of each year in Calcutta and other 6 months in America. Google returns home for the party and Google finds a copy of the short stories of Nikolai Gogol. This is the gift from his father. Google begins to read the short stories of Nikolai Gogol, and therefore this shows that he is slowly accepting his name, his past, his cultural background, his identity, his native cultural sensibility. To conclude the novel, The Namesake teaches us that identity is not about choosing one culture over another. Instead, identity is about accepting all parts of ourselves. Identity is fluid, flexible, ever evolving, negotiated with other cultures, traditions, relationships, language, places, beyond and across national boundaries. So, dear learners, that's all for today. Now, I have completed the topic. I hope this presentation has offered useful insight into the topic. I welcome any questions, comments from you, and soon we'll meet again with another video. Thank you so much for watching and listening.